Well, another small phone for the rest of us. And this is a nice one too, and it's so bloody manageable with one hand, you'll be making fun of your friends with bigger phones for compensating. So we've got Gorilla Glass Victus on the front and Gorilla Glass 5 on the back with this sort of color shifting purple. It's not my favorite color, but there's also a blue that looks more like a teal and a gray that looks more like black. Anyways, the back glass has this awesome texture to it, which makes fingerprints almost impossible to see. I really like it, and I'd actually love to see this on other phones. To me, the overall physical design feels and looks like a Galaxy S20 though. So a bit of an older design with those thin, hard to hold onto rails if you're not using a case, and that curved display which loves to pick up false positive touches. But a lot of people really like this design, which is why we keep seeing it. The stereo speakers actually sound pretty good. They've been tuned by Harman Kardon, and there's a Dolby Atmos toggle you can turn on and off, but with it on, audio sounds a bit brighter, and while off, it sounds a bit warmer. Not sure which I like better, so that'll come down to personal preference. Now, because I'm right-handed, I do have to rotate the phone the opposite direction I normally do, otherwise my hands cover the speakers while watching content or gaming. It's not a big deal, but it's something I'm still having trouble getting used to. And of course, what would a Xiaomi phone be without an IR blaster at the top for controlling your TV or other appliances? Now, let me ask you a serious question. Do people actually still use these on phones? Like, I don't personally know a single person who actually uses the IR blaster feature, so let me know in the comments. Anyways, the in-display fingerprint reader is fantastic, super fast, super accurate, zero issues with any of that. Except the placement is maybe just a tad too low, with the general consensus preferring it to be just below the middle. Bottom line, it's better than the Pixel 6 fingerprint reader, and that's really all that matters. The 6.2-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED display is actually really nice. It's plenty bright with 1100 nits of peak brightness in auto mode, so outdoor visibility has been great. Colors is where it really stands out though, with a 12-bit panel that has an HDR10 Plus rating and of course Dolby Vision. And if you jump into display settings, we've got a whole bunch of color profile settings. Personally, I like the saturated option for those punchy colors, but let's say you want as accurate a color as this display can produce. Just jump into advanced and select the P3 gamut, which will take full advantage of those 12 bits, or go even further beyond that and adjust the hue, saturation, contrast, and even gamma settings. It also supports 60 Hz or 120 Hz dynamic refresh rates, so scrolling around in apps that support 120 Hz is going to be great, but unfortunately, you won't be seeing 120 Hz while gaming because this phone's, well, it's too fast for its own good. So 8 or 12 gigs of RAM with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Great specs for a phone, right? There's just one problem. As a lot of you probably know, the Snapdragon 8 produces a fair amount of heat. So to mitigate that, Xiaomi, like most other brands, have thermal throttled the crap out of it. So like even with performance mode selected and my test games and apps loaded into Xiaomi's Game Turbo app, I'm still left a little disappointed. So you'll see while gaming, it'll hold at about 60 FPS, but nothing more, and temperatures get pretty hot, especially around the top of the cameras. So unfortunately, we won't be getting the full performance experience of what this phone can actually do. And if we go down the rabbit hole a little further with 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme Stress Test, you can see the stability score is embarrassingly low, with performance just dropping off a cliff the moment the test was started, balancing out at loop 10 as the CPU hits its thermal limit set by Xiaomi. So if gaming is a big part of your usage, you'll want to be looking at other phones. Otherwise, performance with literally everything else is flawless. It'll come running Android 12 with MIUI 13 running on top, along with all of its own set of features. Thankfully, other than a few harmless Xiaomi apps like the Mi browser and Mi community apps, there really isn't any bloatware or services being pushed. And so far, I haven't experienced any bugs or issues of any kind after the past couple of updates, so everything's just been nice and smooth. Now, the main triple camera setup has taken some really nice photos for me. We've got a 50 megapixel standard wide, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel telephoto macro. I didn't use the macro camera because I think they're kind of silly on phones, but the standard and ultra wide produce some wicked images. Like, I was really impressed with the colors and how well these cameras handle the different lighting conditions. There's a 32 megapixel selfie camera that takes some great portrait photos too, but that dynamic range can be a bit hit or miss. I'd say it hits more than it misses, but skin tones need a little tweaking to bring the reds down just a tad. 4K video at 30p looks great, and optical image stabilization's working good too, and night mode works great too without anything meaningful to critique. So there's a 4,500 mAh battery that lasts me a full day of heavy use at around 70% brightness, with the display set to 120Hz dynamic and the performance mode set to balanced. It'll fast charge to 100% in under 40 minutes with the included 67-watt charger. It can also fast wireless charge to 100 in under 55 minutes at 50 watts and can reverse wireless charge at 10 watts. So we've got several charging options with great charging rates and a fast charger that's actually included in the box. At the end of the day, it's a pretty awesome phone. We've got a nice and small footprint that you can actually use with one hand. The display is awesome. It takes great photos. Battery life is great with fast charging and an included charger as a bonus. And the performance is fantastic for everything. Although, I'd sure like to see Xiaomi unlock some more of that performance for gaming. So starting at $750 for the model with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, I think it's sitting in a pretty good spot for consideration, although I think it should have come with like 256 gigs of internal storage as a starting point. But I think that's gonna do it for this one. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Cheers.